Commander Zixthak adjusted his bioscanner, its crimson display confirming what their intelligence had promised. Earth's dominant species possessed no natural claws, fangs, or armored hide. Their bones were fragile calcium structures that could snap under minimal pressure. Most curious of all, they had somehow evolved without any visible predatory adaptations, despite claiming apex status on their world. Pathetic, growled his lieutenant, Kravaloon, flexing razor-sharp appendages that had torn through the exoskeletons of Centaurian war beetles. 47 systems we've conquered, and now we're reduced to hunting these ... soft shells? The Krithik pack had built their reputation on methodical efficiency. Their hunting rituals were legendary across the galaxy. Calculated stalking followed by swift, brutal elimination. No species had ever escaped their attention once marked for harvest. Earth represented what should have been a relaxing hunting trip, almost insultingly easy prey. Zixthak activated the cloaking field around their observation post, hidden within what humans called the Rocky Mountains. Below them sprawled a settlement the natives called Denver, teeming with millions of potential targets. The pack had studied human behavior patterns for weeks, noting their predictable routines: consuming heated plant matter in the morning, sitting motionless in structured environments during daylight hours, then returning to their shelters as darkness fell. Simple creatures observed their tracker, Vexstar, whose sensory tendrils could detect fear pheromones from 3 kilometers away. No pack coordination, no territorial marking. They even voluntarily separate their young from adults for extended periods. What puzzled the aliens most was humanity's complete lack of survival instincts. They had observed humans walking alone through dark spaces, their attention focused on small glowing rectangles instead of scanning for threats. They wore no protective gear, carried no weapons, and seemed utterly oblivious to danger. The preliminary hunt begins at dawn, Zixthak announced, his voice carrying the authority that had led successful campaigns across the Andromeda Spiral. We'll start with isolated specimens to study their pain responses and fear reactions. Intelligence suggests they have primitive communication methods. We'll need to understand their distress signals before moving to larger groups. But as the pack settled into position, something unexpected caught Vexstar's attention. His sensory readings spiked wildly as he detected massive adrenaline surges from multiple humans nearby. The biochemical signatures indicated extreme stress, responses exactly what they'd expect from prey under attack. Yet through their scopes, they saw no predators, no obvious threats. Instead, they observed humans gathering voluntarily in what appeared to be a ritualistic formation. The creatures were strapping artificial wings to their backs and leaping from elevated platforms, plummeting toward the ground while emitting high-pitched vocalizations. Are they ... under attack? Kravaloon whispered, scanning for the invisible enemy that must be driving these humans to such desperate escape attempts. The pack watched in bewildered silence as human after human threw themselves from the platform, their biological stress responses screaming mortal terror while their facial expressions suggested ... joy. Asterisk, 3 days of observation had shattered every tactical assumption the Krithik pack had formed about Earth's dominant species. What they initially mistook for a mass extinction event turned out to be something called Extreme Sports Weekend. At a local recreation area, Vexstar Essery equipment registered readings so chaotic he assumed it was malfunctioning. Humans were voluntarily triggering fight or flight responses that should only activate during life-threatening encounters. Yet they lined up eagerly to repeat these experiences, something their xenobiologist, Dr. Kethron, deemed biologically impossible. Commander, Dr. Kethran reported, his usually steady voice trembling, I've isolated and analyzed the neurochemical patterns. These creatures are artificially inducing predator proximity responses. They're biochemically simulating the experience. of being hunted ... for pleasure. Zixthak observed a group of humans preparing what appeared to be crude explosive devices. His tactical training kicked in clearly. These were desperate defensive measures. Perhaps humans had detected the pack's presence and were preparing for siege warfare. But instead of establishing defensive positions, they were loading the explosives into a colorful container suspended from a tree. "Gender reveal party," shouted one human as others gathered in a semicircle. Zixthak tensed, preparing for the tactical explosion that would mark the beginning of human resistance. The device detonated in a massive fireball that would have impressed Krithik military engineers, showering the area with debris and colored particulate matter. The humans' response defied all logic. Instead of scattering or taking defensive positions, they cheered and embraced each other. Several began consuming fermented plant matter from transparent containers, their motor functions deliberately impaired by voluntary toxin ingestion. "They're poisoning themselves," Kravalum observed with something approaching professional admiration. A final act of defiance to deny us the satisfaction of the kill. But Dr. Catherine's readings told a different story. "Negative, Lieutenant. Elevated dopamine, increased social bonding hormones, celebration responses. They're enjoying this." Nearby, another group was engaging in what appeared to be organized combat training. Humans strapped themselves into wheeled metal contraptions and deliberately collided with each other at high velocity. The sound of impact echoed across the valley metal, crushing metal, bodies thrown against restraining harnesses with forces that should have caused severe internal injuries. "Derby time!" They screamed with apparent delight as sparks flew from grinding metal and smoke billowed from overheated engines. The pack watched a human designated as Crusher Mackenzie extract herself from a vehicle that had rolled multiple times before catching fire. Instead of seeking medical attention, she raised her arms triumphantly while the crowd erupted in approval. Blood streamed from a head wound she seemed completely unaware of. "This is beyond predatory behavior," Zixthak muttered, his certainty about human psychology crumbling. "These creatures actively seek out situations that trigger massive trauma responses. They've weaponized their own survival instincts against themselves." The festival continued around them humans, launching themselves from great heights attached to elastic cords, others descending into underground cave systems with minimal illumination, groups deliberately exposing themselves to sub-zero temperatures while wearing minimal clothing and calling it polar bear swimming. Each activity registered massive stress responses in the participants, yet they paid currency to access these experiences. They formed queues. They brought their offspring to observe and learn these behaviors. Dr. Kethran's equipment detected something even more disturbing. The humans weren't just participating randomly. They were escalating. Each activity seemed designed to trigger greater fear responses than the last. They were systematically building tolerance to moral terror. "Commander," Dr. Kethran whispered, "I believe we may have encountered a species that has evolved beyond the need for external predators. They've become their own apex hunters." The Krithik Pack's reconnaissance protocols demanded direct observation of prey behavior under stress. Zixthak selected what appeared to be an isolated human engaging in solitary activities, prime conditions, for a controlled first contact scenario. The target had ventured into an underwater cave system carrying primitive breathing apparatus, seemingly unaware that such environments represented death traps for air-breathing species. Standard Krithik hunting methodology involved psychological pressure before physical engagement. Zixthak positioned himself in the cave's depths, activating his fear projection systems designed to trigger primal terror responses. His bioluminescent threat displays pulsed in patterns that had reduced warrior species to catatonic states. Human emerged from a narrow underwater passage, his breathing apparatus functioning at minimal efficiency in the cave's toxic atmosphere. Zixthak revealed himself in full predatory configuration 12 feet of evolved killing machinery designed by millions of years of successful predation. The human's initial response seemed promising. His stress indicators spiked dramatically, adrenaline flooding his system as evolutionary programming screamed danger. But instead of fleeing or assuming defensive postures, the human pulled out a small recording device. "Dude, this is insane," the human exclaimed, pointing the device at Zixthak. "Are you guys from that new immersive experience company? The makeup is incredible. I'm totally posting this." Zixthak attempted to clarify the situation by extending his primary killing appendages and activating his sonic intimidation systems. The human's excitement increased proportionally. "Brad Davidson, extreme adventure blogger," the human continued, apparently introducing himself during what should have been his final moments. "Seriously, who designed your costume? The detail work is phenomenal. Are those practical effects or CGI augmentation?" The creature designated as Brad began circling Zixthak with his recording device, providing what appeared to be documentary narration. "So I'm about 200 feet down in Devil's Throat Cave, and I've just encountered what has to be the most realistic alien creature effect I've ever seen. The attention to detail is mind-blowing. Look at those articulated joints." Zixthak attempted a different approach, utilizing his chemical warfare capabilities to release pheromones designed to trigger immediate flight responses. Brad paused briefly to comment. "Okay, that sulfur smell is really adding to the atmosphere." Seriously committed to the experience. The situation deteriorated when Brad attempted to physically examine Zixthak's bioweapons. "Are these spring-loaded? How do you get them to extend so smoothly? The engineering must be incredible." Desperate to re-establish proper predator-prey dynamics, Zixthak seized Brad by the torso, using his primary manipulation appendages. Instead of the expected terror response, Brad became even more enthusiastic. "Whoa, haptic feedback. You can actually feel the hydraulic systems. This is next-level stuff." Through his cum system, Zixthak could hear his pack members monitoring the encounter with growing confusion. Dr. Kethron's voice crackled through. "Commander, the subject's neurochemical profile indicates extreme pleasure responses. His fear indicators have completely inverted." Brad had somehow positioned his recording device to capture both himself and Zixthak. "Guys, if you're thinking about booking this experience, do it immediately. The immersion level is unprecedented. I genuinely can't tell where the performance ends and the special effects begin." The final humiliation came when Brad attempted to include Zixthak in what he called social media documentation, trying to position them both within the recording device's field of vision while maintaining a continuous stream of commentary about the incredible production values and revolutionary entertainment technology. Zixthak found himself trapped in a scenario his millions of years of evolutionary development had never prepared him for. Being enthusiastically reviewed by his intended prey, when Brad finally departed, he left behind a small card reading, "Extreme Adventure Experiences," with what appeared to be contact information, shouting over his shoulder, "Seriously, call me if you guys need testimonials." This was absolutely legendary. The pack leader floated alone in the toxic cave water, questioning everything he thought he understood about predator-prey relationships. Dr. Catherine S. Anthropological analysis had identified human juveniles as the most logical targets for psychological study. Young specimens across all species displayed predictable characteristics, heightened vulnerability, dependence on adult protection, and instinctive fear responses to unfamiliar predators. The pack positioned themselves to observe what humans termed a birthday celebration for their offspring. The initial setup appeared standard adult. Humans had gathered juveniles in a contained environment, ostensibly for protection. But as the pack monitored the scene, They realized they were witnessing something unprecedented in their galactic experience, a deliberately orchestrated cultivation of chaos. The adult humans began introducing massive quantities of refined carbohydrates into the juvenile systems. Dr. Kethron's scanners detected blood sugar levels that would have induced hyperactivity seizures in most species. Instead of exhibiting toxicity symptoms, the human young became exponentially more energetic and unpredictable. Cake time, announced an adult female, presenting what appeared to be an incendiary device disguised as food. The juveniles consumed this chemical accelerant with obvious enthusiasm, while adults documented the event with recording devices. Zig-Zag observed the transformation with professional fascination. Within minutes, the previously manageable group of juveniles had become something resembling a military unit operating under extreme stimulant enhancement. They began coordinating complex tactical maneuvers without apparent communication, flanking movements, diversionary tactics, and systematic area denial strategies. The adults then introduced what they called party games, which the pack quickly recognized as combat training exercises. Musical chairs involved rapid resource competition under time pressure. Pin the tail on the donkey was clearly sensory deprivation training combined with precision targeting practice. Hide and seek represented advanced camouflage and infiltration techniques, but the centerpiece of the juvenile training program was something called a bounce house, an inflatable containment system that converted kinetic energy into perpetual motion. The pack watched in growing horror as human juveniles transformed the device into a three-dimensional battlefield, utilizing gravitational physics and momentum transfer to achieve tactical superiority over their peers. They're teaching them to weaponize their environment, Kravlum whispered, watching a 6-year-old female execute a perfect mid-air collision that sent two larger juveniles bouncing in different directions while she landed in optimal position to claim territorial control of the central area. The pack's understanding of human society underwent another fundamental revision. These weren't random recreational activities. They were systematic conditioning exercises designed to prepare human juveniles for a lifetime of seeking increasingly dangerous stimulation. The birthday celebration was actually an advanced military training simulation disguised as entertainment. Vexstar-S sensory equipment registered coordination patterns that exceeded those of elite Krithek hunting formations. The juveniles were displaying pack behavior more sophisticated than species that had evolved specifically for collective predation. Without apparent leadership hierarchy, they spontaneously organized into tactical units, shared resources strategically, and adapted to changing battlefield conditions with remarkable efficiency. Entity designation Emma has achieved total battlefield dominance, Dr. Kethron reported, tracking a juvenile who had systematically eliminated all competitors through superior tactical positioning and strategic alliance formation. She's demonstrating command capabilities that would be impressive in a Krithik pack leader. The final phase involved introducing projectile weapons disguised as party favors. The juveniles immediately grasped the tactical applications, turning balloon animals into ammunition and utilizing party hats as defensive equipment. They had spontaneously developed rules of engagement more complex than most galactic military codes. When adult humans announced cleanup time, the juveniles executed a coordinated withdrawal that would have impressed veteran military strategists. They evacuated the area while simultaneously concealing evidence of their activities and redistributing resources according to predetermined protocols. As the pack observed the juveniles' parents collecting them, Dr. Kethron noted something that chilled him to his core. The adults were exhibiting pride in their offspring's performance. They were actively cultivating these behaviors, encouraging the development of tactical thinking and controlled aggression as positive traits. Commander, Dr. Kethran reported quietly, I believe we've witnessed a juvenile military academy disguised as a social gathering. These humans are systematically training their young for warfare against threats they haven't yet encountered. The Krithik Pack's emergency extraction protocols had never anticipated a scenario where apex predators would flee from their designated prey. But as Zixthak initiated their departure sequence, he knew their survival depended on immediate evacuation from what could only be classified as the galaxy's most dangerous death world. Their stealth ship powered up while the pack frantically compiled evidence for the Galactic Predator database. Every major hunting guild would need to be warned. Earth's designation would require immediate upgrade from easy harvest to extinction risk, with a mandatory species-wide avoidance order. All systems online, reported their pilot, Shektar, whose usual confidence had evaporated after days of monitoring human activities. Setting course for the outer system. Recommend maximum velocity until we achieve safe distance. But there, Escape encountered an unexpected complication. Their ship's movement had apparently attracted attention from the local human population, who seemed to interpret their advanced alien technology as some form of entertainment. UFO! Voices called from below as humans emerged from their shelters, carrying recording devices and what appeared to be celebratory beverages. Instead of exhibiting the expected terror responses to an unknown extraterrestrial presence, crowds were gathering to observe their departure. Worse still, several humans had somehow positioned themselves directly beneath the ship's trajectory, apparently attempting to achieve closer proximity to what they undoubtedly recognized as potentially lethal alien technology. They were holding signs reading, "Take me with you," and "Beam E up," while displaying the same inexplicable joy responses the pack had observed during all human activities. "They're trying to board," Vextar reported with barely controlled panic. "Multiple humans are attempting to attract our attention for what appears to be voluntary abduction." Through the ship's communication systems, they could hear human voices, attempting to establish contact. "Hey, aliens. Want to try our new extreme bungee jumping setup? We've got a 2,000-foot drop with sharks at the bottom. It's totally safe." Jektar increased altitude rapidly, but the humans' persistence defied all logical parameters. Several had acquired primitive flying devices and were attempting to intercept the ship while emitting obvious distress calls. That sounded remarkably like expressions of enthusiasm. "Commander," Dr. Kethrin reported grimly, "I'm detecting massive adrenaline spikes from the human population. They're interpreting our presence as an opportunity for enhanced recreational activities." The final confirmation of Earth's deadly nature came through their intercepted human communications. Emergency response frequencies carried messages that would haunt Zixthak for the remainder of his existence. "All units, we've got confirmed extraterrestrial contact at coordinates 39.7392, 104.9903. Setting up a welcome party with fireworks, extreme sports demonstrations, and a competitive eating contest. We want to show them the best of human hospitality." Copy that. Deploying the volunteer skydiving team to intercept their flight path. If they're advanced enough for interstellar travel, they'll definitely want to try base jumping off the spaceship. Roger. Local news is setting up coverage. We're treating this as the ultimate extreme tourism opportunity. Already got 3 reality TV shows interested in alien-human adventure challenges. As Earth diminished in their view screen, Zixthak transmitted the emergency warning that would echo through every hunter's guild across the galaxy. Species designation: human. Planet classification: death world. Maximum threat level. These creatures have evolved beyond the need for external predators. They hunt themselves for entertainment. They condition their young through systematic exposure to mortal danger. They actively seek out experiences that trigger survival responses, suggesting a complete inversion of normal self-preservation instincts. Warning to all hunting expeditions. Humans will attempt to include you in their recreational activities. They interpret predatory behavior as invitation to friendship. They cannot be intimidated because they recreate fear responses voluntarily. They consider pain and danger to be forms of entertainment that under no circumstances should any hunting party attempt contact with Earth. The humans are not prey. They are apex predators who have developed beyond our comprehension. They are to be avoided at all costs. This message will repeat on all emergency frequencies. Long-range sensors indicate they are beginning to develop interstellar capabilities. When they achieve space travel, they will likely attempt to export. Their concept of fun to other worlds. We recommend immediate galaxy-wide evacuation protocols. The Krithik pack limped home, forever changed by their encounter with a species that had somehow evolved to become predators of themselves, leaving Earth as the one world in the galaxy too dangerous for even the most fearsome hunters to approach.